From the Caribbean to worldwide, come and share, interact. Everybody on the street tonight. Them attacking war and trade. All America down so the truth get displayed. Stock market rise and fall. How it really affect the small man now. When the leaders make decisions, Alan, watch close with precision. Deep analysis every week, giving voices to the ones who see. Audience calling from abroad, Nevis, St. Kitts, London Yard, Florida, Jamaica, to everybody locked in for the global view. Reason with the people now, search for the answers somehow. Every Monday we unite, knowledge shining through the night. Rain keep the fire blaze, conversation elevate. Alan lead the dialogue, breaking down your mind.
Reach nowhere, so you have to find a way, find a way.
Live reactions, facts inside. Rain
Them
keep
no
the
want to see you
conversation
rich.
bright. Quality time
Them
every
will love to
Monday
see you
night.
in
From
a
the
ditch.
Caribbean to worldwide,
Them no
come
want to
and
see you
share,
pan to
interact.
up. Them
Everybody
no want you get more, so get more. Show them you not fear them. One load them. Every human have a something that them destined. That is your destiny. To be what you ought to be. Even if they want you reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. They don't want you reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no want to see you fly.
Quality
Them no
time,
want to see you touch sky.
quality time, quality time,
Bling, no me call it
quality
King
time.
Kong. Every song I
Everyone
write,
lay
it's
on
song.
the line,
Every song I
on the
write,
line.
it's song.
Alan,
Tell me
bring the
something.
facts
Am I
tonight,
wrong?
facts tonight. So the people read between the
Believe
lines.
in myself.
Friend life. Everybody tune
Nobody
in
above
live,
myself.
tune in live.
Energy,
Local topics,
energy,
deep
build your
analysis.
energy.
Audience
No
interaction
charity.
every night.
What a sight
Jump
to
on the
see.
live stream
What a
show.
sight to see.
Breaking on the
What a
news and the
colossal.
whole of face
Working and
power.
working and
From
working
the
to
islands
prosper.
to do
What you
I
gonna
love,
stop
every
for?
headline get
Wanna
nice.
keep on this
Be
right on the
now.
corner.
No noise, no
Hey,
gimmick talk.
make way when I'm
Pure
way
facts
there.
when Alan start war.
Hey, tell
Economics,
it later them
politics too.
stay there.
Caribbean lens for the
Hey,
global
that
view.
is your destiny.
Like a plan,
To be what you ought to
viewers
be.
calling. Come
Even
in,
if they want you
everybody
reach
got
nowhere,
advice tonight.
reach
Reasoning
nowhere.
deep till
So
the
you have
morning
to find
light.
a
We
way,
not follow
find a
every
way.
trend.
Them
We
no
are
want you
search
reach
the truth
nowhere,
again.
reach
Real
nowhere.
analytics,
So you
no
have to
pretend.
find a
Quality
way,
times of the
find a
standard
way.
again. Quality time every Monday night.
Them no want
Alan
to
keep
see
the
you
people
fly.
minds ignite. Live reaction, facts inside. Rain keep the conversation bright. Quality time every Monday night. From the Caribbean to worldwide, come and share, interact. Everybody punish.
Them no want to see you touch sky. Them no want to see you fly. Hey. Never wanna see you fly. Never want you touch the sky. Never, never, never. Never, never, never. Reach nowhere, so you have to find a way, find a way. Them no want you reach nowhere, so you have to find a way, find a way. Them no want to see you rich.
Mm. All right, me just don't do it. Yeah. So now we got levels. Now people go hear me. All right then. Respect. Mm. Okay. Good night, everybody. Had to make sure that y'all could hear me all the o'clock so that the mistake that happened last week does not happen again this week. So I could start off. We got a lot to get to this evening. I feel like almost like taking a victory lap. Been taking a lot of victory laps lately. Uh, I spoke. Well, I tried to cover the People's Action Movement. Not out of spite. I don't cover any political party out of spite. I try to treat everybody the same exact way. Generally have the same exact expectations. And for the most part, I don't know these people. So it's never a personal issue as far as I am concerned. But I found that when I was giving my critique a Pam, people end up and tell me, bye, go back on your platform. Nobody wanna hear you. And these types of things. And my thing is, well, okay, all right. I feel you. But as I said, the for me, I'm not attempting to speak about your political party out of any kind of spite. Don't know you. I'm really trying to deal with the people for the most part. Thank you for your honesty, and I'm under the impression that Mark is the only person I see, and his party is the best choice. Well, that's cool, and that's the next thing. I feel like if you're dealing with me, you could be as critical as you want to be, unlike with the other party. Then as long as you not get into my personal thing, give me personally the word, and that's fine. Now when I talk about Dahlia, same way how me to tell her when it come to Sharon, don't talk about Sharon, don't talk about Dahlia, don't cuss me, and I tell me about Carlisle, Agile, and nobody like us, so and we cool. But if you want to critique my analysis and say, well, it's not good enough for whatever, cool, cool. I don't have any problem with them aspects of your critique. Even though, as I said, I gonna try to keep mine on the business aspect. So you hit me on the business aspect, and we cool. With regards to the People's Action Movement, some of the things that I've been trying to tell them is like I see a lack of organization. I don't see a clear vision, and for that, I was divided. I was attacked. So what I end up and do is I decide, all right, Pam, you got it. Same thing is currently going on with me and the Sinkis Labour Party. Don't bother say Sinkits and Nevis is the Sinkits Labour Party. Where, the people get defensive and then they want to come call me stupid and all them kind of things. Once again, let we stick to the critique. And especially if you're going to come and you don't have a picture of who you are. Whereas I'm coming to the public live and direct on a weekly basis. Nobody with all of them coward thing there. Let we just stick to the business. Um, the only party so far who ain't send the people got attack me. And I got a couple of them as my friends on Facebook is the PLP right now. And the PLP is the party that I don't believe in. Out of all of these parties, I believe in PLP the least. Of recent, well, I've never seen any kind of attack from Cleon. Cleon do Cleon decide we not no friend on Facebook no more. Fair enough. It is better for you if I gain against your party because you could use that to galvanize yourself, and at the same time you could pick sense out of nonsense and say, well, boy, I'm going to thief this from Alan. He does have a point in this particular way, and we're going to try to work on that. That's it. That's all my whole goal be. So when I look at what's going on right now, and I see the chaos that is happening, for instance, last week, I said, even before today, I said, if Labour smart, Labour gonna ring the bell. I wouldn't even let them no time we're gonna convention and say, ring the bell, man. Let we go and see what's going on. I got something else what I'm supposed to talk to, but probably in the course of the show you're gonna come across me. Mine, and as I say, we got a lot of things to get to this evening. First thing we're gonna start off with, we're going GT, we're going Guyana. The MV Barima circumstance, we're gonna get into that. And even though we're going Guyana, this is gonna allow us to speak about some situations that are going on in St. Kitts and Nevis. So let we go to Georgetown and see what is going on. Maybe Essequibo, good time for it. I'm telling you, it's a fantastic time to ring the bell while they discombobulated. They ain't plan to have the caucus or convention or wherever it is, because I'm confused. I'm hearing they don't have a caucus, but they don't plan to do whatever they plan to do until a month from now. So one of the best thing you could do is catch them while their pants down. But anyway, Georgetown. And this video is the first reaction to the MV Barima incident.
We're back with another update on the tragedy that occurred in Guyana, involving 116 passengers and 17 crew members, all of whom were aboard the MV Barima ferry when it capsized off the Essequibo coast. Up to the time of uploading this video, rescuers had saved approximately 67 people, including men, women, and children. 2 recovered passengers were officially confirmed dead, while approximately 60 persons remain unaccounted for and are feared deceased. The vessel capsized on the night of July 18, 2026, while on its way to Port Kaituma. We're hearing varying and conflicting accounts of what actually transpired aboard and what may be the true cause of the tragedy. A thorough and transparent investigation by experts in the field of maritime tragedy can help determine what was the underlying cause of the tragedy. Today, we want you to hear directly from survivors and government officials tracking the tragedy. Our hearts go out to all of those who are impacted by this tragedy.
A point to note is that the MV Barima has a cargo capacity of 284 tons, of which at the time of the incident, it had a manifest weight of 268 tons within the capacity of the vessel. It is also licensed to carry in excess of 300 passengers. And at the time of the incident, there were only 116 passengers aboard, along with a crew of 17.
Yesterday we went on the boat and they overload the boat, right? Top middle and the bottom, ram it stops. And water get in the hatch and sink the boat. And the boat ended up turning. Like, before we left, they was trying to get the boat off the sandbank because they parked the boat inside and it's stick up with the mud. And they had about 3/4 to an hour trying to get it off. And when they get it off, it started walking from one engine and they still go with it. They stop. You got the mechanic man walking in the engine and still forcing the boat to go.
The boat was not overloaded by passengers or by cargo. There was no engine problem or any mechanical problem.
Okay, me gonna pass this right here. This minister here is in what is known as cover your ass mode. At the particular moment in time of the recording of this video, no investigation had even begun yet. I think that they were in the early hours of the recovery of personal stage. In which case, it is totally irresponsible. It is malpractice to go and say how there was no overloading, there was no engine problem, XYZ, all these kind of thing. This is malpractice. But once again, when you ain't cover your ass mode, this is how it gonna be. What a responsible minister would do at this particular moment in time is to say that a thorough investigation will be done, and at the conclusion of the investigation, the report will be made public. And how this translates to St. Kitts and Nevis is that we recently also had a boat that capsized, sink, whatever you want to call it. And it is very important that the reporters, whether it is at the Premier's press conference, but more properly at the round table or whatever media availability the Prime Minister has, it is of the utmost importance that this question be asked. And the question I'm saying is, do not ask what is the result of the investigation. The question you need to ask is, how is the investigation going? Well, when will the investigation be concluded? And will we be afforded a copy? Will a copy of the report be made available? And recall, when Kobe Bryant died, it was made public what was the reason why the helicopter went down. This is a very common practice. It affects different people in different ways. So I feel like this is something that should be asked. Anyway, let me go after this malpractice here.
Even the survivors who made videos from the hospital, they're telling you what happened. And it had nothing to do with overload and boat taken in water.
But I'll be just see one of the survivors. Them say the boat been overloaded. And you see, and this is why it's malpractice. For anybody who is a minister or want to be a minister, don't rush the brush. Take your time. You got to wait to see what is going on, and you have to be, above all, thorough in what you do and what you say. This is why public relations matter.
It had to do with the tide.
That the boat overfull, overload. And there was a lot of people at the top of the water we got inside. That make the boat thing. Because when you got on this side, all the water on the other side and the most of the people on this side.
Nobody
and then what happened like the thing over. And it didn't happen like half a second. Water can even fast.
10, 20. Me have me phone in my hand, so I just been check the time. And it's getting up for call me son when I see everybody just brace down one side, all the people running down.
So the incident happened around 10:30 p.m. And what time was it? 5 in the morning.
The vessel is not seaworthy. I just received some documents and I will be publishing the documents so that everyone can see. It is not seaworthy. They don't even have a manifest to know how much force is.
We need a manifest. We want them to publish the manifest so that
One thing I would say is that we're still in the analog age in St. Kitts and Nevis, and I think that it's about time that the manifests are digital so that when you have unfortunate circumstances, you could get this information out there quick. Because it is important for people to know, well, by yeah, your loved one was on the boat, even persons, fisher folk. It is important to be able to say, well, by yeah, you're looking for this, and that person. So, some kind of way we need to digitize the process so that in these unfortunate circumstances we can move
we
fast.
can see, the country can see how much persons on board our vessel. And why is it, if this incident happened at 10:30 p.m., based on survivors here, why is it at 5 a.m. then vessels arrive? 7 hours after. Why is it so long?
You see what is happening right now is a lot of people on the ground feel like there's a misinformation campaign going on. When you try to, for instance, just treat the people as quickly as possible and get them out to the hospitals, it feels like you're trying to make sure that you cover up something, and that's not what we want to do.
I feel the boat must be black up somewhere or something because right? I was sitting in hammock and I saw the boat go like this. And then after I wait, and when it roll over, watching it going back like this, but it keep going over. So what I did, I waited till when it raised up and I plunged. And the wave shined me back in the boat. So I had to just loose my bag and start fighting to catch it up. I reach up top, it sent me back again. 2 times I get through back. But I just relax, catch myself and start paddling and I come up top. When I come up and I see the light, I say praise Father and I start swimming and hold on from 2 long vanillin full, hold on under, then I watch to see a bottle, hold on in the bottle, and hold on in the gas bottle and I hug the 2 together. And I got about 4 or 9 other people come and we were on that. Meet me at a girl with your baby, hold it, and that was it.
The MV Barima, at the time of the incident, was outfitted with 250 life jackets, 6 inflatable life rafts, and 2 rigid life rafts. The assets deployed have been significantly increased, and as of now, we have both air and sea assets that are continuing to search the area. And here I'm talking about state assets and support from the private sector. Local fisherfolk with knowledge of the area have also responded as part of the search and rescue efforts. The 3 command centers that were established as of 7 a.m. this morning are one at Mabruma, one at Port Kaituma, and one at Yana in Georgetown.
The another thing I would like to add is that we need to have more exercises, and especially more joint exercises. Exercises with Montserrat Coast Guard, exercises with Antigua Coast Guard, St. Man, all of these different places. We need to have more exercises so that in the event, once again, that these unfortunate incidents happen, we have established protocols. And maybe at this point in time, maybe there needs to be some kind of protocols with the fisher folks as well.
And there we have personnel from the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security and from the Transport and Harbor Department and from the Ministry of Public Works that are meeting with the relatives of those who were on the boat at the time of the incident. The families of those rescued and all manifested persons, therefore, on the voyage, including the crew, have been engaged. The captain and the mate of the ship, who were rescued, have since returned to the area as part of the rescue operations. Our local leaders in Regions 2 and one with support of the Civil Defense Commission and staff of the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security have been providing psychosocial support in those regions and here in Georgetown, as mentioned before, at the Humana Yano site.
So we will be heading out back along.
If he wasn't again, if he was, I think, is a nearest politician and he was headed out back, bah, would I make fun of him? But he's a GT, and everybody know GT will head out back. GT will reverse back. That's just GT. If you ain't originally from Guyana, and I hear you talk about you ain't reverse back, well then no, you ain't a real GT. But we're gonna leave him, this man here, doing politics. I think we've covered him actually a couple of weeks ago, because we get to Guyana from time to time, you know. You'll Guyanese news. This next video has to do with actually the indigenous people of Guyana. And I don't know if you know, but I got in a little indigenous in my blood, you know. The Kalinagos, who was referred to as the Caribs. The Dominica side of my family. I get in a little Kalinago, you know me. So we're gonna cover it from the indigenous aspect.
The MV Burima passenger ferry was the primary mode of transportation for the indigenous population traveling to certain hinterland destinations. So I think it's fair to conclude that most of the people who either survived the MV Burima sinking disaster or have lost their lives in this tragedy are indigenous people who are also called peoples of the hinterlands. I think this is the breaking point for the indigenous population who are mourning the loss of God knows how many people. Because let's be real, there isn't an accurate record of the total lives on board.
We have not known exactly how many passengers boarded the MV Burima due to inaccurate information that we continue to receive from the authorities. It is quite possible that many of them may have been children. As of the reports received on Tuesday, the bodies recovered were 11 female children and 4 male children. That gives us a total of 15. 15 of our babies, our children, lost their lives. This is a clear indication that the maritime rules were breached. This discrepancy suggests that proper passenger registration was not followed, raising serious concerns that compliance with maritime safety requirements and accountability in the event of an emergency was not in place.
Even though this is my indigenous sister, I'm still gonna say, before we're gonna call the thing full, we got to wait and hear what the investigation do. You will generally hear me always lean on the side of saying, hey, let me wait till the investigation. And then after we get the results now, then we're gonna start to deal with who we got to deal with. Generally. I say generally because when we get to the 15 guns and the 1500 rounds of ammunition, I have a different take. I feel like we have a little more information. But in this case, we're gonna be fair and say, let me hear what the investigators say.
Let me now express my thoughts from the perspective of an indigenous person. All lives matter. I repeat, all lives matter, irrespective of your ethnicity, where you live, and your economic status. It is basic knowledge that the Burima-Waini region is populated with various ethnicities. It is also public knowledge that many indigenous peoples reside in this region. However, there has never been a comprehensive comprehensive review of the transportation service by sea, air, or land for the hinterland residents.
The authorities at the Transport and Harbors Department and the Ministry of Public Works failed these passengers epically. Epically.
I also want to join with the Amerindians People's Association and my colleagues in the joint opposition in calling for the resignation of the Minister of Public Works, Bishop Juan Ejia. It is time for him to go. He has failed us. He has failed the Guyanese. He has failed the indigenous people. And as a whole, he has failed the country.
From all indications, from all the reports, from the survivors, from people who witnessed the ship leaving, the story is the same thing. The ship was overloaded. Ever since I've been tracking the history of the indigenous peoples in Guyana, as far back as decades ago, the cries of the indigenous peoples to be heard and to be treated as all the other ethnicities in Guyana have, for the most part, been ignored. Why? It's anyone's guess. It is because of a dangerous perception, because of how they look, how they live, how they spoke. The bottom line is the indigenous peoples, whether they're the Caribs, the Arawaks, the Rawaus, the Wapishianas, the Makushis, the Patamonas, you name it. If I'm not mistaken, 9 Amerindian tribes live in the hinterlands. All of them have been given a raw deal. They've been left for last when it comes to national development. They've been left out, not counted, dismissed, not thought of, not considered, and did not have a seat at the table to negotiate for their...
I don't understand why they would get picked on based off of how they look. And maybe it's just the little ignorance of my experience, but I ain't see a ugly calendar yet, you know. I don't know where they are. Maybe they doesn't all the good looking one in university, but me not see an ugly one yet, bro. So I would not be, if anything, I would be discriminating for them. But remember, me got a little bit too, so.
Their interest and their needs. They were not important. And this is regardless of regime. This has been happening under the PNC, the APNU plus AFC coalition, and the People's Progressive Party regimes. Under all of these governments, things didn't change, or it didn't change much for the original peoples of Guyana. They were not and are still not in 2026 a priority. Their health, safety, housing, education, well-being, community development, and general livelihood were not a priority compared to the people who live in mainstream Guyana. By mainstream Guyana, I mean Georgetown, the capital city. Guyana is like Georgetown. Georgetown is like Guyana. If you don't live in Georgetown, you get the scraps. And scrap was what the MV Barima was. An old, derelict vessel. One that probably was no longer...
Well, once again, I don't know if the boat was overloaded or not. But what I will tell you is, first of all, if me going up on a boat, I ain't gonna be in the first shower rain. I gonna be in one of the last shower rain. And if I going on the boat, and the boat is look so long down in the water than that, me ain't better going again. And you better believe you don't have times when I don't decide whether it's carnival or other thing. Me ain't better going in the sky. Me need to go so bad. Me not understand. Maybe I saw that they don't look at so low down, but not me. I would have found another way to reach where I need to reach.
seaworthy. So it might have been only a matter of time for the inevitable to happen. The 9 decades old vessel finally gave up. But at
9 decades? Over 90 years old? Come on, Guyana. Remember I full of money now, no? I got the fastest growing economy in the world. I better replace all of them old boat, yeah. No. as Tia would say, expeditiously.
The wrong place at the wrong time, when so many people, men, women, and children, were on board.
Not too many years after the Madhya Dam fire, which claimed the lives of more than 20 of our indigenous children, this disaster has reopened painful wounds for indigenous communities across Guyana. As indigenous peoples, we are frustrated and tired by how this government continues to treat us as if we do not matter. And we will no longer accept being pushed to the margins of our own land. We are aware that the Tushaus are out here in Georgetown for the National Tushaus Council Conference. I call on our indigenous leaders to demand justice for the families who have lost their loved ones. Men, indigenous men, women, children, or babies. And in no less terms, I ask that the leaders demand for a long-term psychological and trauma support for the survivors and the bereaved families.
So today, we are confronted with a tragedy of epic proportion. And as this vessel that now sits somewhere at the bottom of the Atlantic, somewhere in the Essequibo region, we are reminded, not only as indigenous peoples, but as a nation, of how much they didn't care for us, for them, for the ones who lost their lives, and those left to forever remember.
You see the comment. I understand that they bought a very expensive boat, but the port where the new boat could dock was damaged by a hurricane. So that boat was brought back because it could be docked accordingly. Well, sir, could you enlighten me as to what? Okay, look on.
That moment when it was life or death, and they survived.
Feed.
Move now. We did answer your question. We have to move now to Mr. Smith,
Prime
and
Minister,
then we close.
Prime Minister,
So this is a closing question. Let's listen carefully.
yeah, it's a two-part question. Anyway, Prime Minister, yesterday when I asked about Minister Edgell if he felt he needed to resign and so, and I made reference to the calls that were being made by the public, you used the word we avoid the noise, and that seems to have rubbed the public the wrong way. So I want to ask you if you wish to use this press conference to maybe use another word as against the noise that you used yesterday. And finally, what I was trying to ask Minister Edgell, which I will ask again. I know you could want to write CXC, mathematics, and your teacher may tell you that you're not fit to write it because you're not ready. My question of asking Minister Edgell if he believes the calls for him to resign are justified is the question that I would really like to ask Minister Edgell again, which I'm doing. And if you can allow Minister Edgell to say if he believes the calls for him.
Yeah, well, remember you asked the question last show. Who should benefit from the resources? Now look at what happened with the boat in Guyana. This is what I'm telling you. I like to tell you about the future, man. And really and truly, well, I want to talk about the culture, but we in a serious part, you know. But I would like to know. Somebody mentioned that a hurricane damaged Guyana. The first thing I would like to know is what hurricane was that? Very interested to know. A hurricane hit Guyana? When was this? And secondly, once again, this is the fastest growing economy in the world. We can't get on that. We building oil rigs and can't build work up here. I don't feel like that gonna carry water. I had stick for my phone now. So if well, the introduction for this video, this is a heated debate between the ministers. That's the prime minister. We have already seen him in a previous video, and we have also already seen the minister of public works, Mr. Edgehill. And the question is it fair for the people to call for the resignation of the minister responsible? What do you guys think? Would this be a fair call?
To resign are justified. That is all I'm asking, Minister Edgehill. Do you believe those calls are justified?
I will address any issue at the appropriate time, not tonight.
Okay.
Yesterday I said we've heard the noise, and I want to congratulate you for contributing to the noise today.
I think that's a disrespect.
It is not a disrespect. You've contributed to the noise because I did answer you yesterday. I said we heard the noise, and you come back today with the same thing.
Concerns of
Right?
the
Listen to
public
me.
noise?
Yes,
Prime Minister.
I have no apologies to make for the statement I made yesterday. As far as I'm concerned,
I feel like the prime minister put himself in a spliff. I don't feel like this is the right thing to say that the people were making noise. And by the way, any politician want to say ignore the noise?
there's a lot of noise out there from the opposition. As far as I'm concerned, there's a lot of noise out there from the opposition. I am not getting angry. I'm just be adamant that the focus is on dealing with the search, rescue, and recovery operation.
It is not
There are opposition elements that are contributing to the search. There are opposition elements who are making a lot of noise out there. And I said, not only that they're making noise, I said Guyana remains a democratic state. People have a right to say what they want to say. Once they don't go down, breaking and damaging buildings and private property and going to a state of disorder. That's what I said yesterday, and I stand by everything.
I feel like he could have just said, you could say what you want. And it's basically the same thing I said at the top of the show. If you want to give me some word, give me the word them. I could take them. You can do what you want. But definitely, you could say what you want within reason. That's fair. When he started talking about disorder and all that kind of thing, well, no, he losing track. I feel like that's the pressure leaking.
That I said yesterday. I believe in that. I believe in what I said. And I believe that what I'm doing now is the right thing. Focusing on bringing closure to those people who would have lost their loved ones. And ensuring those who were rescued get the best.
Read the comment here. Poor people will always suffer at the hands of persons in authority who don't care about poor people. Same shit with the Christina. Persons were not taken care of up to now from that disaster. Indeed, sir.
Here, right? Many of them remain traumatized and working in this whole of government approach, which includes the opposition elements who wants to be helpful in bringing closure to people, in bringing comfort to those who were rescued. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
We're going to step on the revolutionary part, you know. There is something going on in India right now. If you do not know, the Prime Minister of India is the one, Narendra Modi. Wait, there might be a minute, put the video in. Look like me got to go to Iran, huh? Yeah, I'm gonna go to Iran then, and upload the video in the meantime. The boat didn't have insurance. Listen, if the boat not had insurance, well then no, we're gonna have to reach this stage where the Prime Minister gonna go to. Going about the MV Leisha for US 12 million. It's used to port Kaichuma was delayed because the newly built wharf developed structural problems. MV Barima continued to be used. Boy, is it right? Is it right to put people's life on the line because of delays? How we look at that? You're gonna gamble with your life for a delay? But where is the priority? But I really treat the indigenous people that bad. Anyway, the war in Iran, I spoke earlier this year about the war in Iran. It's a very important thing. I told you because I know that the politicians would certainly use it as an excuse. If you don't believe me, look at your neglect bill at the end of the month. But it really has serious implications. We spoke about a number of things. It's not just oil, but oil products. It has implications for food crisis and all them kind of things that we actually gonna get into next. But this next video is an overview of the 3 possible outcomes that could happen as a result of what's taking place right now. And to be fair, Mr. President Trump has slowed down the offensive. So we don't know where that's gonna go, but this is gonna outline the 3 possible outcomes.
Iraq, Afghanistan, Iran, another US forever war? Washington and Tehran have locked horns. Neither side is showing signs of backing down. They're stuck.
You end up in this mow the lawn approach.
Iranian capabilities will just grow back. In a moment, we'll look at how well positioned Tehran is to keep this war going, and if a full-scale conflict is close.
That would be all-out war. That would be essentially the continuous targeting of one another, with of course major fallout for the Gulf states, potentially pushing them closer and closer to direct intervention within Iran.
But all-out war? A ground invasion? There's talk of that again. Experts argue Donald Trump just wants a symbolic win, a quick in and out. He tried that last year. It didn't work. Other presidents tried the same in other countries, like Iraq. We'll get to that in a moment. First, where are we at?
Well, really, there are 3 ways forward from our current situation. This essentially cyclical retaliation, tit for tat, back and forth, and the no war, no peace scenario that many have described the Middle East as being in at the moment.
This is security analyst Megan Sutcliffe.
The 3 ways forward from this, of course, are first the status quo, that this essentially continues up until the United States and Iran either tire of this cycle or decide that they are going to engage more meaningfully in diplomacy and therefore negotiate a settlement out of this situation. That would be very destabilizing for the region. Essentially, we would be highly unlikely to see the resumption of supply chains through the Strait of Hormuz or a normalization of security and travel risk environments within the region during that time.
So option 1, everything basically stay the same. That will have an effect. Once again, think about your neglect bill amount time, and that's just one effect. Even the cost of plastic, the cost of helium, the cost of cell phones, the cost of any electronic item that require memory chips, all of that would drastically be affected if this thing is to continue. at the current
The
pace.
second way forward from this situation is unfortunately an escalation, essentially one in which this cycle continues to spiral upwards and
I won't let you
the
say what she
United
said.
States and Iran push each other closer and closer into full-scale conflict resumption. That would be all-out war. That would be essentially the continuous targeting of one another, with, of course, major fallout for the Gulf states, potentially pushing them closer and closer to direct intervention within Iran. That's a worst-case scenario here, because that would present major pressure on global markets. It would fundamentally undermine the security of the Middle East, and it would likely leave a legacy of instability beyond not just the coming year, but possibly the coming 3 to 5 year period. The final way forward.
So the second option that she just described is very much unlikely. It's currently the United States has two carrier strike groups over there. There's the Abraham Lincoln and there's the George Bush. The Abraham Lincoln has been over there for about 8 months. The George Bush relatively fresh, and they do have some special assets over there as far as personnel. But in order to go into Iran, as I would have said very early, you're gonna need at least 500,000 ground troops, and they're gonna be on rotation. That is not what is over there, so it's very unlikely that this thing escalates to a full-blown invasion. All the people have been talking about that. They just, I don't see the military assets over there ready to do what would be necessary. So that's unlikely.
Is actually a de-escalation. And while this seems relatively unlikely at this point in time, it's not unprecedented.
De-escalation requires a lot of pressure on both sides. Domestically in Iran, that huge protest movement before the war seems to have fizzled out. More on that later. For the Americans, casualties in comparison to the Iranians have been relatively low, but the potential political cost will become clear in the US midterm elections. There's definitely a cost for America's allies in the region, all of whom have been struck time and again, and there's still no let-up. There's something else I have to bring up here. Many of the senior leadership in Iran are veterans of another conflict in the 80s, the 8-year war Iran fought with neighboring Iraq. That not only shaped how the country approaches long-term conflicts, but also the military doctrine it's pursued.
All of these individuals served in the Iran-Iraq war, and they will have seen what happens when Iran is confronted by a state that is militarily in some ways superior to it, with greater capabilities. That informed Iran's doctrine of spinning away from building up a conventional and symmetrical military force. Iran recognized from that conflict that it would not be able to do that. And that's why we've really seen it leaning in to its asymmetrical capabilities.
The US confrontations with Iraq may also offer an indication of where this conflict is headed. And I don't mean the US.
So the final aspect, and the one that would be the most beneficial to everybody in the world, is as they describe de-escalation. Let me slow this thing down, let me come to terms. Now, part of the issue with the de-escalation issue is that America gonna have to eat it. And I see that as a major impediment. And when I say America gonna go eat it, I feel like they're gonna have to accept that Iran is in control of the Straits of Hormuz. That's their thing. And it is likely that Iran is not gonna give up any capabilities as far as missiles. More than likely, they're gonna get a nuke at some stage in time. And so there will be a major power going forward. So that's the issue with the de-escalation, but I feel like that's where we are at this point in time.
US invasion of Iraq in 2003.
The comparison I would actually use is Iraq in the 1990s.
This is foreign policy analyst Kelly Grieco.
The United States was enforcing a no-fly zone over parts of Iraq. And that was actually a significant military operation that continued. And so there was this enduring commitment throughout the 90s that they were using air power to enforce that no-fly zone, at times conducting strikes as a result. And so I think it ends up being something like that, and that it would be, heavily air power centric. But yes, we're talking about a long-term enduring commitment with no end in sight.
Here's yet another point that suggests this war could drag on for a long time, or that Iran could at least hold out a lot longer than you may think.
The real challenge, though, becomes that even if the United States is able to destroy, let's say, 95% of Iran's missiles, launchers, its missiles, and its drones, and that's not a number, just to be clear, that the CENTCOM has said that it is achieved, but even if it did, hypothetically, it would still have a 5% residual capacity, and that 5% is generally going to be enough for the Iranians to be able to disrupt traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. It doesn't take a lot of a missile and drone threat to be able to stop that traffic. So even if they were able to say strike, a vessel once, every week or 2 weeks, it's what we're finding is that's enough to halt that traffic. And so that means that war of disruption that Iran's waging is really hard for the United States to suppress.
Plus, there's another blocked strait, a new front in this war.
Hostilities have now escalated to the point that the Houthis have declared a blockade on Saudi Arabia.
The Iran-aligned Houthi rebels in Yemen are blocking the Bab al-Mandab Strait in the Red Sea, which was being used as an alternative to the Strait of Hormuz.
This is an additional point of pressure. The Yemenis, as we call them in the West, the Houthis, have entered the chat. And so Saudi Arabia wasn't getting out as much oil as they would get. They were actually being able to get out some in the Red Sea. Now the Houthis say, no oil, no time. And so this is an additional set of pressure on the kingdom of Saud.
Sending global oil prices surging again. So the whole situation is only getting worse, and any off-ramps remain elusive.
The most acute and the most important goal that Iran has right now is ending the conflict with the United States on its terms. Those terms being an agreement which recognizes Iran's control of the Strait of Hormuz and allows it to levy things like service fees and environmental taxes, essentially another form of toll, as an economic lifeline. Iran also aims to end the conflict with the United States in a way that would be conducive to a nuclear agreement that is on its terms.
The chance of that? Well, the line from Tehran is that they're dealing with a weaker leader than US presidents past. And as long as there are missiles and bombs dropping on Iran, the regime controls the internal narrative.
We entered this year in a series of mass protests opposing the government and calling for fundamental change. However, the fact that the government and the Islamic Republic has been able to survive this conflict now has an increased access to economic lifelines, as well as things like frozen assets that were previously held overseas. That is going to increase the government's repressive capacity, its ability to prevent and deter unrest, and therefore the prospects for regime change, for a popular uprising, or any kind of liberalization within the Islamic Republic, that seems even further away than ever before.
What they found is that despite killing all those leaders, the Iranian regime proved more resilient than expected. And of course, it continues on. And so when that failed, they had to go to their plan B. And it seems their plan B was largely about degrading Iranian capabilities and capacity. The problem, though, is that they made that the objective. And I'll just note that that objective is those are a set of military objectives. It was never really clear what that set of military objectives, what political objective it's trying to support. Because if those are the objectives, of course, we're going to end up in this situation where that leads us, into this potential mowing the lawn situation.
Sounds horrible, but this day-to-day business of war is becoming more of a chore, if you can say that, albeit with life and death consequences, and no end in sight. I'm Ben Fazul, and thanks for joining us.
If you're unaware of what mowing the lawn means, that means that every time the situation rise up, basically, they can just head over there and drop some bombs. And it's not a healthy situation. I remembered one of the things I wanted to talk about after that. I love culture armor. Let me say that from the start. And in a similar way to when I speak about political parties, when I offered some critiques on Culturama in the past, it was taken as, Alan, you're hating. You don't know what you say, you just want to get happy with. And just like what I do with Pam, I say, you got it, big dog. And now I'm seeing Culturama get to a stage where it seems like there is a lot of negativity around Culturama. I observe last decade that Culturama had become political. I know people who have said, that's idea in, me not got Culturama when NRP in. I know people who right now who say, they ain't got no Culturama if the current government is in. I've heard that. I am playing in my mind with the possibility that either Culturama might need to be privatized, maybe we need to start a non-profit company and allow the people to determine, hey, these gonna be the people who in charge of Culturama. Let the people actually decide. It feels to me like we have lost our way. And it feels to me like one of the things that need to happen is obviously you would still need some help, some assistance from the government as far as when you're talking about concessions, bringing in things, and some financial assistance too. Not saying no, but maybe there needs to be some consideration for, as I said, privatizing Culturama, creating a non-profit company. I wouldn't say a statutory corporation either. I would say a non-profit company, and allowing the people to decide who's gonna be the chairman, who's gonna be the board of directors, and how Culturama is gonna move in the longer term. There are some persons right now, obviously, who I think have to be removed from Culturama. But it is at the point right now, I don't think the current administration would be able to save it. And I also feel like there may be some issues. I don't think it's gonna be as straightforward as NRP get in or another party get in and Culturama is saved. So maybe Culturama need to head back to roots. Culturama was not always a government thing. So maybe it need to be in the hands of some kind of neutral party or a private party in order to maximize Culturama. That's all I'm gonna say with regards to that. We're going towards now the cockroach protests in India. This is the most that the Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been challenged in his 12-year tenure. I was doing some research on this. This originally started when a High Court judge referred to young people as cockroaches. And one of them young people went online and said, well, what about if all the cockroaches come together? And they have since started to push back on the politicians. So I just tell my partner, your son, you got to study revolution and protest and all them kind of thing to see how it works out. And by the way, before we get into the protest, I don't know how much time you need to see DJ Marisha post people private conversation before I realize you need to leave DJ Marisha alone. But I go ahead.
How does a make-believe party of cockroaches suddenly pose the biggest challenge to India's government right now? Well, throw some police brutality into the mix and the result is explosive. Cockroaches are said to be able to survive a nuclear catastrophe. True or not, thousands of students marching on Parliament under the name of the Cockroach Junta Party just endured their first baptism of fire on Monday. The intriguing result...
The fear is gone amongst the youth. You know, we saw so many youth coming forward telling the police to attack them. They said that we are here to be beaten up by you. Do what you want to do.
This is my colleague Shalu Yadav.
I have covered a lot of protests over the last 12 years, even beyond in India, but I've never seen this kind of turnout on the streets. I've never seen this kind of anger amongst the youth.
The issue is of the students and the future of the youth. And whatever is happening, people being thrashed.
This is completely un-Indian.
There's been a lot of shock amongst the students as well. You know, the younger ones, especially the students who were there, they didn't expect this kind of police action. We saw a lot of the students walking away with tears in their eyes, you know, with injuries on their bodies. So questions are now being asked as to how democratic is India now, given that there's hardly any right to dissent, even though you know, a protest like this has been allowed to happen.
So what sparked the march and why is the government calling them terrorists?
We saw a lot of the students yesterday screaming in slogans, you know, do you think I'm a terrorist? I'm just a, you know, regular student who's here asking for you know, better educational reforms. So that has been the biggest criticism from the government. They say that these protesters are funded by anti-national forces.
The students say they want accountability. Exam papers were leaked and would-be doctors denied entrance tests, leaving their futures in limbo. So they've teamed up with the Cockroach Movement that started as an online joke around the same time.
The Chief Justice of India, Suryakant, basically said that the jobless and the unemployed of this country are like cockroaches.
Ouch.
You had someone sitting miles away in Boston, in US, who took a note of this and tweeted out in jest, basically saying that what if all the cockroaches come together and form a Cockroach Janata Party?
What started as a protest over exam paper leaks has grown into a much wider movement.
We are seeing protests.
This is also an example of you take the disrespect that somebody give you and you turn it back around upon them. And the thing that was a weakness, you turn that into a strength. And I really like that aspect. Another thing to take note of is the protests. Originally, it was only like 100 people a day, you know? Even though you're seeing all of them, all of these people now, it was small in comparison. But when they brought out the police to try to intimidate people, that's when the process really started to get organized and really start to push for more rights. And the people and them, as they have described, they don't have any fear in them anymore. They're asking for accountability from the politicians.
In you know, other cities around India, we're seeing protests in Berlin, we're seeing protests in Washington DC, in London. I've been speaking to a lot of professors and teachers over the last 1 month that I've been covering these protests, and they say that the idea of getting exam papers through corruption has become a bit you know, institutionalized. It's become normalized, and that is where the problem lies.
This is my first time at a protest. I'm here as I'm a student. I'm preparing for teaching exams. This is not the democracy we read about in books. This is a democracy we're being shown. There's a big difference.
Now, even as the government action has taken action against certain officials whom they blame for leaking of these exam papers, the students say that it was too little, too late, and which is why you're seeing this manifestation, this outpouring of anger of these students.
Their anger is directed at the education minister.
Whenever there's been a big scandal historically, ministers have taken moral responsibility and stepped down from their role. But that has not happened in this government, and they have said it.
Well, we're going to get to the minister in the next video. You better believe that. But you hear that? The traditional thing in India is if you fail, the moral thing to do, and we could replace moral with the word right, the right thing to do at that stage is resign. You got to go. So in it same thing what I would think would be the case in the MV Barima situation. You got to go.
Repeatedly that we don't do that. And experts say that the biggest worry of the BJP government is that today, if they give in to this demand of removal of the education minister, tomorrow it could be another minister, and it could be Prime Minister Modi himself.
That's the big shift here. The protesters have become a threat to Narendra Modi's power.
This is our elected government. We voted for them, and on the basis of that, they have power today. Now there won't be any more of those votes, and he will lose that power. He will have to resign. He will have to resign. In front of you, all of India's youth is on the streets now. The mute and deaf government is just a few steps away. We have come to wake them up.
It was the first time on Monday that people were seen raising slogans against Prime Minister Modi himself, calling for his resignation.
And not to forget one of the most potent political tools in India, hunger strikes.
Remember, this is the land of Mahatma Gandhi, who led the peaceful freedom struggle, back in the 40s, in the 30s and 40s from the British rule, the colonial rule. So I think the government has largely sort of, taken note of protesters who sit on hunger strike. But this time it's not happened, which is why I think, which is why a lot of the Indians are angry. They say that why is the government showing so much arrogance that it cannot even engage in a dialogue with someone who's on hunger strike and appeal to him to end this hunger strike.
The man leading the hunger strike, Sonam Wangchuk, has been a key figure in this movement. He's an educator and climate activist from the Himalayan region of Ladakh. Wangchuk has been on hunger strike since June 28th. He's in hospital, which he calls illegal detention by the government.
When I went to this big protest call, which was the call given by activist Sonam Wangchuk to march to the parliament, most of the protesters there were Gen Z. There were hundreds of thousands of students there, which begs the question, is this the beginning of the Gen Z revolution in India?
Well, is it? Let us know what you think. I'm Ben Fazulin. Thanks for joining us.
As I said, the next video, because the real issue right now is between them. One of the things that they request is that the Minister of Education step aside. And 2 days after that video we have just seen, the minister did step aside. So we're going to hear now how this cockroach movement was able to put enough pressure on the government to actually get changes. And it is also important to note, if you are going to go into these protests, you have to have a political goal in mind. It must be that somebody get fired, I don't know. But if you want changes from the government, you would need some kind of political goal that must be clear and outlined for the people in order to get them to come out and really agitate for what you want.
India's education minister has stepped down after weeks of youth-led protests over a major examination scandal. Dharmendra Pradhan announced his resignation on social media just as police fired tear gas to scatter young protesters in New Delhi. The violence flared hours before leaders of the so-called cockroach movement were set to hold talks with ministers. The protests are seen as the biggest challenge to Modi's leadership since he took office in 2014. Pradhan's resignation had been a key demand of the movement. Our DW correspondent Adil Bhatt is monitoring the situation from Delhi. Adil, what do we know about the minister's decision here?
Well, first of all, it's a massive victory for protesters, students, and also for Cockroach Janata Party. We have seen visuals coming from Jantar Mandar, the designated protesting site, where we saw the founder of Cockroach Janata Party, Abhijit Dipke, announcing the resignation of Education Minister of India, Dharmendra Pradhan. He announced on the podium that and shouted in front of thousands of people, where he said that Dharmendra Pradhan has resigned from his post, and the crowd, which was like protesters and students, there was a movement of jubilation. There was a movement of excitement. We saw people on the streets dancing, singing songs, and we saw people also using slogans that. And then after that, the reaction that we saw from the crowd and Abhijit Dipke kind of addressing them, he said, if you kind of protest against this government, they're ready to accept your demands. So in democracy, you don't have to fear. We have to keep protesting. We have to give them signal that unless and until you don't listen to the demands of protesters, we won't back down. So in this case, it's a massive, massive victory.
The thing I got to find out about them protests, yeah, right, is whether or not you need permission to protest. It strikes me as kind of odd that I need permission from the government and from the police to protest when I supposed to have a constitutional right to freedom to gather. No, I would understand that there would be some laws around that as well, but it should be more of a that should be more of a rubber stamp than a lot of the things them that we just consider rubber stamp. If I want to protest peacefully, it should be more that I'm indicating to you, and you got to tell me yes.
Definitely for students, for Cockroach Janata Party, but kind of a huge setback for Prime Minister Modi, because Modi's image in India is kind of a strong man. He doesn't budge. He doesn't show any signs of weakness. But this time, after farmer protest, this is the second time we saw Prime Minister Modi kind of accepting the demands of students, protesters, and Cockroach Janata Party. So huge, massive news and really exciting news for protesters and students from New Delhi.
So, Adil, the protesters have got this victory, this massive victory as you describe it. Will this movement, the cockroaches, now end their protests that have been happening right across India?
That's what they said. That was their main demand. The main demand was the resignation of Education Minister of India, Dharmendra Pradhan. Now that has been accepted. Apart from that, let me give you some context. There were 2 rounds of talks so far. Yesterday was second round of talks in which there were like 3 major demands. The first was resignation of Dharmendra Pradhan as Education Minister, which was accepted. Second was the compensation for students who died because of exam leaks. That's pending now. And third one was you don't have to file any cases or charges against protesters or students who were protesting near Jantar Mantar. So the first demand has been accepted, 2 more demands are pending, and now they have added 1 more demand that they expect Delhi police to post an apology for students because they accuse them of police brutality. So first demand has been met so far. There are other 3 demands. So according to Cockroach Janata Party's manifesto, or they're updating their roster, they said first demand has been accepted. They will still like to continue unless until 3 other demands are not accepted. So we had to. So far, the signaling is unless until you don't accept all these 3 major demands, we are not going to leave the protesting site.
Adil Bhatt with the latest in Delhi. Always great to talk. Thanks, as always.
Okay. So once again, you see, they went in with the protests with demands. And that's one of the reasons why I tell you, maybe I would protest under those conditions, but there must be clear demand. I don't like protests as my main form of political dissidence. There are other ways to go. If you study I said the honorable, but I don't think he was honorable. If you study Dr. Martin Luther King, you would see that there are other ways to express your political dissidence and highlight those more than protests. This next video, we going to the police and the press conference, and I'm gonna give you a little spoiler. I feel like someone of the officers on them needs to sit down. No?
But we will want to have the public input in this regard, and to reduce some of the larcenies. Some of them could be avoided. With regards to the guns in Nevis, from the police standpoint, there was no criminal intent, and we revert the matter to the Customs Department. Custom exercise.
I wanna explain why criminal intent is necessary. So there's this thing in law called strict liability. And when there is a strict liability offense, the onus is actually on the defendant to show that they didn't have any intent. An example of strict liability is actually the possession of a weapon is a strict liability offense. The importation of a weapon, however, requires you to show that there was some kind of fraud, some kind of attempt to evade, the fact that you were importing this particular weapon. That is my understanding of the circumstances. It still leaves questions open to me. And it still look very, very strange that you would have import 15 weapons and 1,500 rounds of ammunition, just like us all. But that is my understanding of that particular law, in case anybody want to know why intent matters. Also, when it comes to a criminal offense, you also have to have the mens rea and the actus reus. Mens rea meaning the same intent, and then you have to have the actus reus, which is the actual act. So you bring it in, but did you have the intention in your mind to commit a crime? Yes or no? So the rationale for not charging any offense is that there was no criminal intent. That's the logic behind what the officers are saying.
Television Caribbean, TVC Channel 40. With regards to the same Nevis matter with the guns and the ammunition, is this a case where the person who made the application or the request or provided the information that there was no follow-up from the police end that was on time before their travel, before they had to ship their products to Nevis? What was the situation that led to that circumstance? Secondly, some time ago, you had indicated that there was difficulty getting local recruits from St. Kitts and Nevis, citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis. Is that the situation still? Where are our recruits coming from now? And what is the manpower needs currently of the police force?
I will let my Deputy Commissioner of Police answer that. He's responsible for the service improvement.
Well, with respect to our recruitment efforts, currently we have about 30 new recruits who are training school, ongoing training. The initial training should be completed on or around September, October. So we have started that course this year. We are still intaking applicants. We have a list of about 45 applicants. We are going through that, doing our routine processing. And so it is our hope to start another course shortly after this one is ended. So by December, we should have another course of at least 30 persons in training. We haven't recruited anyone from outside, both within the current course and the one that is pending. But some of the persons who have applied are non-nationals residing within the federation. We have not gone outside the federation to recruit persons. There are some non-nationals who resided in the federation and they're eligible to apply once they meet the criteria. So we do not anticipate a problem with recruitment. We do have an influx of persons who are showing interest.
What overall manpower needs of the entire course?
Well, yes, over the...
greatest needs right now?
Well, our greatest need is always to have persons, to replace those persons who may have resigned, retired, or otherwise left the organization. Over the years, we have had a modest attrition rate, and so we are in the process of replacing those persons who would have left. So we are not up to our full strength at this time, and that is why we are having continuous recruitment to improve our establishment.
And on the matter of the Nevis issue?
Okay, firearms were shipped to the Federation without authorization. And based on the circumstance, as I've said, there was no criminal intent, and the matter has been referred to the Customs Department in that regard.
Troy Biff Mills, Win FM 98.9. What criteria were used to determine that there were no criminal intent? And has the gun permit been approved for the expats who ship the weapons?
So, one thing I would say, you see how I start off, and I telling you, giving you an explanation of the law. It is malpractice to not have an attorney up there, and this is why police are not equipped to speak towards what the law is. And to a large extent, it doesn't even matter if they went to law school or university, because their mindset is more on the police aspect of this thing. You realize me start off and me don't give, hey, this is what we mean by when we talk about no intent and explaining to you the circumstances. He just kind of speaking like everybody's supposed to know what is going on. And this is why he's still getting peppered with the same question of like, what's the criteria and all them kind of things. But let me continue. Okay, let me be open. Why we say that there's no... This is a bad start here to this question. And this individual here we're talking, I want to believe this is the one where I would say, I feel like this one here is the one what really has to go. You don't start off by telling me, let me be open. Because I'm going to assume every time this officer here talk from now on that he lie. I just want you to talk, sir. I want to give you the benefit of the doubt and feel like every time you talk, you're being open with me. But if you're going to start off and tell me, let me be open, I'm going to assume that there are some times when you ain't being open with me. And that can't work. For this particular situation, There are certain press conferences, my God, you know that you are gonna get certain questions. And this is why you need to be prepped and prepared to answer at least these basic questions. Oh my God, come on, man. What are we talking about?
Criminal intent. The visitors, they did send an application ahead of the weapons being shipment. So we got an application via email requesting.
Okay, this is a point of contention for Alan Powell now. I was unaware that you can make an application for a firearm for the shipment of a firearm. I did go into the legislation to see whether or not there is any specifics of how this thing should be handled. But I was shocked and amazed that you could simply send an email in order to get a firearm, any type of firearm license. That don't seem to me to be the right thing to do, and maybe we need to look at that. This is coming from somebody who say that we need to digitize. But if we're going to digitize, here's what we need to do. Let's get a portal, a public portal, where you could apply through this portal for a firearm license. And not only that, let me make it all the way public. Let everybody be able to see, oh, this person here got a firearm license. That person there got a firearm license, etc., etc. I think that's fine. If I'm wrong about that, I'm open to hearing the reasons why persons would not want to disclose that they have a firearm license. But this should not be a situation where you just could email. Like, who do you address the email to? No, do you email like a personal email? Because, and where I say personal email, you got officers who they drive the personal vehicle and put on lights, and all of a sudden it don't into a police vehicle. This is a standard practice in St. Kitts and Nevis. So we need to tighten up on this particular aspect here. Y'all think that you're supposed to be able to email for a firearm license?
Import permit. There was an import permit that was submitted, a list of the firearms and their serial numbers, copies of their licenses to keep those firearms in Canada.
Whether or not they have a license to keep them firearm in Canada is inconsequential. They need a license to have them firearm in St. Christopher and Nevis, and we need the money. So, okay. The serial numbers and all them kind of thing, I like that. That's fair enough. I think those are things that are required from the application, from what I recall. But whether or not they had a license in Canada is of no consequence. And this also, I think that this is the reason why they said that there was no intent to commit a crime, because they would have indicated. No, I still have a point of contention in how they did the indication, but nonetheless, they at least, before they attempted to get them into the country, indicated to the officers in some form or fashion that that was their intention. And so you could see the argument that there was no intent to defraud the police.
And as well as their passport data by a page. So that was sent to us via email, but it was not processed in time. Somehow we missed it among the list of emails that we got. It was leading up to music festival, so we would have had it.
Okay, this is my next point of contention, and I want to build on one. This is why I said there needs to be an actual portal. We need a mechanism, and there needs to be somebody whose responsibility it is to process these applications. Second thing is, raise your hand if you're fed up. If you're fed up of people say, it was coming on to music festival, I was coming on to Culturama, I was coming on to Christmas, I was coming on to Independence, and so we get lost in the sauce. And so we couldn't do what we needed to do again. That is the major one for me that indicate that somebody got to get fired. I sick of this from politicians, and I could understand why the police using it, because politicians does get up there and talk about well, music festival being comes, we couldn't do our job. That is nonsense. High level nonsense, but nonsense nonetheless.
Quite an influx of emails. And so we were not able to process that application before the weapons arrived. When the container arrived, it was declared to customs as well. So customs knew that they were in the container before they opened the container. However, customs did not relate that to us. So by the time we were called, we thought that it was something that was done outside of the remits of the law. And so
this is also another point of contention here again. Here you have two law enforcement agencies, because customs, you better believe it is a law enforcement agency. And there is no communication between them with regards to the particulars. And what this end up turning into is maybe these people will end up and sue the government and get some kind of money, you know, for having to go through all of this. Which once again would be a reason for me to say that who would this be? I think they said Deputy Cromwell. Yeah, Deputy Cromwell for me could work.
we responded and we took custody of the weapons. So we have all the weapons in custody. As I said, because there was attempt to inform us, to notify us, we were notified. So we could not prove that they had intended to smuggle them in. Because smuggle, you must have an intent to evade the authorities. And we cannot establish that they want to evade the authorities when they would have sent a list of what they are bringing in to the authorities. They would have declared it to customs before customs opened the container. So you cannot conclude that they were intending to evade customs either. However, because the application was not responded to and they did not have the relevant administrative processes completed, the law gives customs that leeway to levy penalties for that violation.
See, this is where I can't be with this. I am on the side of the importers. You can't tell me that you ain't process my application because Music Fest happened and boy had a lot of emails and we couldn't process this and all kind of thing. And then say that the law give customs the leeway to charge? What you're talking about? No. This is on the government due to your incompetence. Hence why I will say once again, I think that we have enough information and wait, Cromwell Henry? My God, what a name in 2026. But Cromwell Henry, I really and truly that man got to last name. Man. Cromwell Henry. My God. But I feel like he gotta go. And there needs to be some kind of new protocol put in place in order to make sure that this never ever happen again. I don't see any way how customs should charge these people if they declare them. But okay. Let me tell you the way. Let me tell you the way. I got to give you the full coverage. Now, the other part that is confusing is if I do make an application, okay, for instance, I'm in America right now, so, and it's a gun town. If I make an application to ship some weapons and I do not hear back from the government before shipping those weapons, I ain't walking with my tools. Ain't no shot. That can't happen. I ain't gonna assume that I gonna get through. So in that regard, I do see how there is an issue. But it's still kind of come back. This is a 50-50 thing because the reason why I'm in the position that I am in is because these officers was caught up with music festival, which is nonsense.
And so we turned it over for customs to deal with the persons under the Custom Act because we could not prove intent, which is an important element of any crime. We leave customs to deal with it administratively. And I don't know if the commissioner wants to tell us what customs would have did, but customs would have dealt with it.
Okay, so this is a singing and nervous man. So the fact that he wanna tell me that, well, the commissioner might say what customs would have did, sir, fix up your English. This is not Guyana by. Oh gosh now.
In my opinion, quite severely.
So the criminal intent in that situation is the importation of the weapons. What about
to evade
customs and
to
all of that?
evade the authorities?
But
that will be the
have
detail.
they declared the use of the weapons? Was anything done to determine there's no criminal intent in terms of the use of the weapons?
Okay, so this now is where you as a journalist, you got to research and you got to say, boy, listen, you go say, Alan, I can go ask a question. Could you please explain to me how this thing go? And then I got to be Alan. He think it's full of liar. And he got a lot of politician liar too. Who want to get in a government. Ask them, then what? They gonna make time for you, sir. You might end up saying is me attack. But ask them and see what the them say. Because right now, this man here, he like I say, music festival start for he Francis, yeah. Francis, he get the answer.
The weapons are collectors items, and they even had locks on the trigger, and they were well secured. So we really couldn't conclude that they had any intent. What they intend to use them for, that would be.
In no way. In no way. I need 1,500 round of ammunition for collector's items. I ain't buying that part of the story then. I ain't going for that.
Speculation. And even locally, if a person apply for a firearm license, they would not tell us what they intend to do with it. They would only say, I want the weapon to protect myself. They're not going to say, I want it to do X, Y, or Z that is criminal. So we can speculate as to what they're going to do with it. But what is important here is that the weapons are in police custody, and we do not intend to hand them over to them. So we want to allay the public's fear that there are 15 guns out there in the hands of these people to do whatever they want to do with. The guns and ammunition are in police custody, and they will not be returned to the.
They will remain in police.
They will remain in police custody.
I'm still not clear about this.
Yes, we want it to be clear, so make
police
sure we get it
hold
clear.
the firearms and the ammunition when there is no criminal intent? That doesn't seem to make sense to me.
Say that again?
Why would the police
yes.
hold the firearms In other words,
Yeah, because you see, Glenn Barth is a professional. 'Cause I needed, this is part of the thing why I ain't understand. You're gonna tell me that they don't commit no crime, we hold the guns. They don't commit no crime, they hold the guns. This is a good question.
the persons who imported them will have no access to them.
Because no license was issued. We cannot leave you with the firearm and you didn't get a license.
So are you saying then that once they pay the license that they will have access to the firearm?
Well, if they apply for them and the police decide to give them, then that's an option. But as I said,
when the police decide to,
there's an application process. There's an application.
What is the procedure that should be followed?
See, this man here, who does not know the English language and who was not prepared before he went up there, got to go. Cromwell Henry, gotta go.
For them to get, because they imported the firearms. They notified you all that the firearms were coming. You all did not respond in time.
Right.
So they're coming from overseas. They have to ship their products or whatever it is at a certain time to arrive in St. Kitts and Nevis at a certain time. But the fault seemed to be on the non-response of the police.
Yes.
Now you want to punish them because the products have arrived here in St. Kitts, but you all did not respond to the item.
Well, if you
explain to me, why is it now you're turning around and confiscating the guns and saying that they have to pay the license, but
what I'm saying,
even
you
if they
cannot
pay the
keep
license, they may not get them back.
You cannot keep a firearm unless you have a license. So they don't have a license, so we have to keep the firearm.
So they have to get the license.
They have to get the license, so they would have to apply. They would have to apply to us for a license, and that's within the commissioner's purview to grant or not to grant. That's everybody's right. Everybody have a right to apply, but whether or not we grant, that is within the commissioner's purview.
DCP Henry, just for clarity, did the persons in who the firearms belong to, did they apply in ample time to receive the clearance or to receive the license?
He applied at least a month prior to the shipment.
Was that ample time?
No. Well, what I would add, what I can add, what I.
See, we got somebody else what want to add. Let me see if he add himself to the chopping block. Because this officer here, like I said, he don't understand the question. So a month before they come, they don't let these people know. And music festival not been started. And he still can't get it in his mind. Yeah, that is enough time. I asked you a month before I send in the shipment, and you can't get to me, and it's my fault. And even how he talk about it, and we have no intention of giving them back. But what? You hear how he talk about them a collector's item and they got locked on them and so. I know people got eyes on the price.
What I can.
Just quickly, how much would you say is ample time? Okay, if I want to apply for a firearm, and how long is the procedure? How long does the procedure take? Is it a 3-month period? Is it a 2-week period? Is it a 1-week period?
Well, locally, when persons apply for firearm, the process usually take a minimum 6 months before a final conclusion to the application is made. In this case, you
6 months to get, I guess, a no. This is not an efficient process. I love America.
asking me what is the ample time. I would not say that they need to apply to us 6 months before. The fact is, the weapon came, they notify us that the weapons are here, they notify customs that the weapons are here. So the next step would be to take custody of the weapons. And now they have to go through the application process, if they're here too. But the weapons are not in their hands. And it's all up to us what we do.
And if I may, just to piggyback on what the Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner were saying, the Customs Act is very clear. The very first item, number 1, that is listed as a restricted import is firearms. It also stipulates very clearly what the process is if one wishes to import firearms legally. It says it in black and white that you must have the express written permission from the Commissioner of Police. So the length of time it takes to apply all of that, that is essentially neither here nor there, because no weapons, no firearms are supposed to land in the Federation without the prior authorization. Point blank, that's it.
You see, my thing is, right, and me no want hear nothing else from the police because I gonna get upset and say something what me not supposed to say. They are not trying to deal with their incompetence. So and me him try to deal with that, you know. I do understand the part there, you know, but they also got to deal with the incompetence. And they also got to say 6 months. Here what make it worse too. If you're local and you need a firearm, it take 6 months to resolve that day. But he wouldn't necessarily say if you're aware that you need to apply 6 months before. Which means that being out here, you got more privilege than people who are home. How I feel about that? If they've been say 1 month, I feel like 1 month is supposed to be enough. Why I need to do to determine if I could get me firearm license. But no, all of these people them they just want a different police. I mean, I know that. So we gonna move on. I got 2 more videos: food crisis and a bar circumstance. So me going. I gonna move on to the food crisis. Police just want different police. Clear enough. All I hear this year.
It looks like the perfect storm. 3 crises. The war in Ukraine still hangs over one of the world's major grain exporting regions. The war involving Iran has disrupted energy, shipping and fertilizer markets. And a strong El Niño is developing, threatening drought in some places and a washout in others. Put those together and a new global hunger spike may seem inevitable. But it has not happened. At least, not yet. Food prices are nearly 20% below their 2022 peak. That doesn't mean food is cheap. Prices are still well above pre-pandemic levels. International food prices rose after the Hormuz disruption, but nowhere near as dramatically as in 2022. By June, they'd begun easing again. Why?
We are seeing improvements in agricultural productivity, for example, in India, across Latin America. These have helped sustain food production and reduce undernourishment. And this is balancing some of the localized impacts of conflict.
The world brought in the biggest grain harvest in history last year. This year's is expected to be slightly smaller at just under 3 billion tons, but still the second largest ever. And the world has a buffer. Global cereal stocks are forecast to reach almost 958 million tons. The stock-to-use ratio, which measures how much food is left over, is 32%, near record levels. Grain has kept moving. Not only has Ukraine managed to keep exporting even when under fire, but prices have actually fallen because they've exported so much. As for El Niño, it's expected to impact harvests due to extreme weather, so the prices of some foods will go up as a result. When weather damage remains regional, other major producers can often compensate. Though that becomes harder if several growing regions are hit simultaneously, or if governments restrict exports. But all that does not mean hunger is under control. The UN's Food and Agriculture Organization says 266 million people are facing acute hunger. That number has stayed fairly stable.
So the issue is not of availability, the issue is of distribution when we refer to calories. So we have enough calories in the world produced to feed everybody. The problem is that those calories are not distributed in the same way across the world, and that's the challenge.
The worst hunger is, of course, where those global grain supplies cannot reach. Just 10 countries accounted for 2/3 of the people facing acute.
By the way, if you watch the El Nino map what they just had, it seems like the Caribbean is gonna be in the zone of hotter than normal. Not drier. No, what it was? No, it is hotter than normal. So in a seem like it gonna be the wet super El Nino. So be prepared for drought conditions.
Acute hunger in the food crisis countries assessed by the UN.
War is destroying local food sources, it's displacing millions of people, it's damaging infrastructure and severely restricts humanitarian access. And in some hotspots, such as Sudan and Gaza, for example, we are seeing that hunger is increasingly being used as a weapon of war.
Conflict in places like Gaza and Sudan can block markets and access to humanitarian assistance. Displacement can destroy incomes and local production, meaning global warehouses can be full while individual families have nothing to eat. And while the geopolitical conflicts have not blocked global supplies yet, there's a risk they could spin out of control. Just take one risk hiding in plain sight: fertilizer. Around 1/3 of the global seaborne fertilizer trade passes through the Strait of Hormuz. Some farmers are paying substantially more, delaying purchases, or switching to crops that require less fertilizer. If they ultimately apply less, yields could suffer in the next harvest.
So the compound effect of a significant increase on all the input prices that are needed for agriculture because of the Strait of Hormuz closure, where 20 to 30% of the inputs come from, plus a potential stress of extreme temperatures or flooding, could create a very complex situation by the end of this year and next year.
So the buffers held. This time, record harvests, deep stockpiles, and rerouted trade have stopped a triple crisis from becoming a global food shock. The latest UN figures show that global hunger was actually falling before these new shocks fully arrived, but the effect is delayed. The UN also estimates that the Middle East conflict alone could leave millions more people hungry by 2030, and that projection does not yet include the effects of El Nino. The perfect storm has not yet produced a global food shock, but it has not passed either. If the oil price leaps again and stays high due to the conflict in Iran, if grain exports from Ukraine are successfully blockaded, if El Nino bites harder into next year's crops while farmers are already planting less, or if all those happen at once, then we could be facing a spike in global hunger. But don't forget, regardless of those shocks, for millions of people, especially in conflict zones, the food crisis never went away.
I was listening to this lady from the UK, and she's very concerned about there being fights for food. She's very concerned about there being fights for food in the 2030s. If you are a Caribbean leader and you are being prudent, I would suggest, oh, it was drier than normal, but I would suggest that you start to grow some kind of corn. Feel like it will be beneficial in the long term. Start to grow corn. I hear all kind of people encouraging backyard farming. Corn is a very important crop to grow. If you got corn heading into a food shortage time, you're gonna do very well in life. You're gonna be okay. The last one, we're gonna cool out after the last one. The last one is really a Nevis only relevant story. At least if you're talking from the Federation, if you're talking about you're from Dominica, other places with hot springs, then this is also gonna be relevant to you. But I always preach that we're supposed to teach as many ideas as possible. Japan is known for its hot springs, and Japan is also known for its hospitality, cleanliness. In case you ain't know, I love East Asia. I want to go over there bad, particularly to Japan. Love Japan. Love the culture. Like everything about Japan, really and truly. So this last one is Japanese bath culture, bath etiquette, bath manners. And I see a lot of things that we could steal from the Japanese and how they do their thing. So once again, if you in authority or if you plan on getting in there, these are things where you could thief. Whether you the concerned citizen movement or you another party, you could build on to the infrastructure that is there right now. So, let me go to Japan.
Japan is one of the countries with the largest number of active volcanoes in the world. A positive aspect of this is the presence of natural hot springs, or onsen, of which there are many. Hot spring bathing culture in Japan started as a means of gaining health benefits, but these days it is commonly associated as a relaxing holiday where one can go sightseeing in the hot spring areas, enjoy the local cuisine, and soak in the baths. Every region of the country has its share of hot springs and resort towns. And baths come in a wide variety of styles, shapes, and sizes. The most common hot spring baths are indoor baths or uchiburo, and outdoor baths called rotemburo. But you can also find foot baths.
So, Nevis would have the variety that they call the rotemburo. But in thieving ideas, you could also thief and try to get one of the ichiburo. But as I say, overall, it's just concepts made deal with. This is not a criticism of what is there, because I know everybody just take it every time it talk as a criticism. This is not that. This is a way to possibly add, even doing an instructional video like this is possible.
Waterfall or beaching baths, sand baths, steam baths, and mud baths. Some types of onsen water also have health benefits when drunk, while in some areas, the naturally hot water and steam are used for cooking. In order to help you get the most of your onsen experience during your trip to Japan, here is our guide on how to onsen. To begin, what makes an onsen? The hot spring law defines an onsen to be water vapor, are the gases that emerge out of the earth at least 25 degrees Celsius, or contain a certain amount of natural minerals. Hot springs were traditionally discovered where water naturally emerged from the ground. However,
I don't think that there's any legislation in Nevis. I think it's don't have to do it once again, and I don't think it has any hot springs. But I don't know that there's any legislation covering what a hot spring is. So maybe we need a legal framework, and we have a legal mind as the premier right now.
with modern technology, it is now possible to bore wells several kilometers underground and pump out naturally hot water pretty much everywhere. Hot spring sources can be classified into 3 categories. Natural springs that produce water spontaneously from the ground with no boring or pumping required. Dug or bored wells that produce hot spring water without the need of pumping. Bored wells that use pumps to bring water to the surface. Needless to say, historical baths in long-established onsen resorts will provide you with a more authentic onsen experience than a modern bath in the middle of a metropolis. A wide variety of hot spring waters can be enjoyed in Japan, differing in the minerals contained. Some are strongly acidic or alkaline, milky or colorful, and fragrant, while others look, smell, and feel like regular water. Many are rich in minerals, including elements such as sulfur, iron, or radium, while others contain little or no minerals. And some are drinkable, while others must not be drunk. Some onsen waters also come with various health benefits, such as helping with fatigue and help with skin and joint issues. The best onsen baths are those fed directly by a constant flow of water from the source without any treatment. They're known as Gensen Kakenagashi and are common in historical hot spring resorts.
Yeah, so once again, we got that Genshin Kagenashi. So, and they say that that is the best type. So, in a lot of ways, Neve is providing or has the potential to provide a very good experience. I feel like we are missing the mark with our springs. Well, honey, that's why I'm trying to share this on. As I say, I giving them the opportunity. Please teeth the ideas.
Gifted with an abundant flow of high-quality waters. However, the water in many other baths across Japan is treated before it reaches the bathers for various reasons. These treatments include heating the water because it is not warm enough, adding or recirculating water because there is not enough of it, and adding chlorine to the water, which often means the flow of fresh water isn't abundant and which leaves a rather undesirable chemical smell in the water. There are thousands of hot springs across Japan, but they're particularly numerous in the more volcanic areas of the Hokkaido, Tohoku, Kanto, Chubu, and Kyushu regions. Some are found in nature with no facilities around them at all, often requiring some hiking to access them. But the typical tourist will encounter hot spring baths at a public bath or an accommodation, such as a ryokan. How to bathe. The first step before enjoying a soak in a hot spring bath is finding the changing areas. Most onsen baths these days.
So now we're really getting into the etiquette part. And this here is a very simple way how we could upgrade the hot bath. Changing the area. Hot bath is something was supposed to happen naked. Eh? This ain't no sexy thing. Take off your clothes. And by the way, they also ain't supposed to be no staring. Act like you seen a naked person before. But changing rooms, locker rooms, all of these things, yeah, add a little class to the thing. And I know that we've been doing it how we've been doing it for many, many years. But we can't upgrade until we experience new things.
Days, with some rare exceptions, are gender segregated. Changing rooms can usually be recognized relatively easily from the curtains that hang outside their doors. Blue curtains are often used for the men's bath and red for the women's bath. But be careful, as it sometimes might not be the case. In addition, kanji characters specifying the gender for each changing room are often present nearby.
Honey, the correct English way you're supposed to use is we are moving to Japan. With the I.
Inside the changing room, you'll find shelves, baskets, and or lockers where you can store your clothes and belongings before entering the baths. You can also sometimes find sinks and amenities such as hair dryers and various skincare products. Onsen.
So I've been researching Japan, and from my understanding of Japan, you don't even need to like walk in grooming products. These people got you. And this is what I'm saying. Like, provide a real service. Class up this thing. Make this thing real sexy for if you want a hot bath.
Meant to be enjoyed naked. Understandably, some might feel a little uncomfortable about bathing naked with strangers, but note that most quickly get over it after their first experience. If nudity is really an issue, consider using private baths, which are available at some establishments and will allow you to experience the water in privacy, although sometimes with a less attractive setting than the larger public baths. Note that tattoos are prohibited in many hot spring baths due to their association with organized crime, although the number of tattoo-friendly baths has been increasing. To avoid an unpleasant surprise in being refused entry to a hot spring bath, we recommend doing a little bit of research on listings of tattoo-friendly bathhouses on the internet.
So, honey, that mean I could get any hot bath, but we gonna got to do research before you go.
It can also be acceptable to cover up smaller tattoos with tape, and private baths could be another option to consider. Now that you're ready to soak in the water, let's get on to how to take a bath. Two types of towels are popularly used at Japanese baths: a small one and a large one. Take the small towel with you, since it is meant to be used for washing and enhancing your privacy, and leave the large towel in the changing room. You will use it later to thoroughly dry your body after bathing. Before entering the bath, thoroughly
You're not banned. We just gotta check to see what's going on. And she did say that they are increasing. So, things are changing. It's 2026 after all. And note the first thing before you go into the bath is that you have to bathe. You go take a shower first before you go in the hot bath. Hot bath ain't something where you're supposed to go in there to bathe. You're supposed to go in there already fresh. And then, well, she gonna explain it.
rinse your body with water from a trough, tap, or the bath itself using a ladle or bowl, or take a shower. While it is important to properly rinse your body before entering the bath, it should not be forgotten that the main purpose of bathing in a hot spring is to dirty your body with the same minerals provided by Mother Nature, rather than cleaning yourself. You won't find taps and showers at older baths, and in natural settings, the use of soap and shampoo may even be prohibited. However, at most onsen baths these days, you'll find showers for people to clean themselves, and soap and shampoo are often provided. Make sure to rinse yourself well afterwards so that no soap gets into the bath water. Enter the bath and soak. Be careful though, the water can be very hot, between 40 and 44 degrees Celsius. If it feels too hot though, try to enter very slowly and move as little as possible, but don't overdo it. Take breaks to cool and try out different baths if available. Keep your small towel out of the water by placing it either at the side of the bath or on top of your head. And although some people do it, avoid sitting with your behind on the edge of the bath, as others will rest their heads there. Also, be considerate of other bathers by not talking too loudly, and do not swim or submerge your head. Those with long hair should tie it up before soaking in the bath. Many baths come with slippery floors, while some hot spring waters are cloudy or non-transparent, making underwater steps difficult to spot. Make sure to enter the tubs slowly and move around the baths carefully to avoid slip and fall injuries. Finally, when you're done bathing, it is recommended not to rinse your body with tap water in order for the hot spring water's minerals to work their magic on your body, unless you have sensitive skin or visit a bath with dubious hygiene standards. As mentioned earlier, use your small towel to pat yourself dry before stepping back into the changing room, where you can use your large towel to dry yourself completely. Now, don't let all these rules scare you. Just remember to rinse your body before soaking, keep your small towel out of the water, and most of all, enjoy your onsen experience. In fact, to help you get the best hot spring soak, here is a list of our recommended hot springs to visit in Japan, starting with our personal favorite onsen towns. Kusatsu Onsen.
Okay, we don't necessarily have to go into the onsen towns. This is for if you really plan to go to Japan at some stage in time. The concepts what I would like to be stolen are the video in general, some of the aspects of the setup. And when I say the video, for example, I feel like it's more effective to get a nice lady to voice an instructional video, just like what we have here now, rather than having a minister complain and say, this is how hot bar's supposed to work. So do a nice little instructional video and explain the concepts and let them explain what we're going for. We're going for cleanliness. And the purpose, once again, of hot bath is not to go over there to bathe. You're supposed to be able to bathe home. You bathe before you enter the water. And you're going into the water to have those minerals and get the benefits of the minerals and the heat on your body. So that is it for this evening. I hope you have been entertained. I hope you have been informed. And I shall see you next week. Next week, which is Juve morning in Nevis. Well, that gonna be at that time. It gonna be what Randy show, and yeah, he gonna be Randy show next week this time. So, but everybody take care of yourself. I'll see y'all in August. What are gonna be like the 3rd of August? We're really heading into the last part of the year. Let me see if something exciting gonna happen politically. Let me see if Dr. J is gonna ring the bell while Palm Week. But outside of that, everybody take care of yourself. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Thank you everybody who interacted with the video. Thank you for everybody who supports Real Entertainment Network on a weekly basis, daily basis, who does check out our Instagram, Facebook, YouTube pages, however you are joining us. Don't forget, if you are in positions of authority, teeth the ideas on them. And also, when you hear me speak about your political party, just know everybody does get the same exact treatment. I don't know you people, man, to be cussing out. So take it easy, and I will see you next week. We done right on time too, cause phone battery up on 3%. Thank you all for watching.
Yeah, interact live. Everybody on the stream tonight. Quality time. Quality time. Quality time. Every Monday, on the line. I'll bring it facts tonight. Keep the future bright. Come and share. Subscribe tonight. Real Entertainment Network worldwide. Quality time. Quality time. Quality time. Quality time. Quality time. Every Monday. On the line. I'll bring the facts tonight. Facts tonight. So the people read between the lines. Rain life. Everybody tune in live. Tune in live. Global topics. Deep analysis. Audience interaction. Every night. Jump on the live stream shot. Breaking down the news and do it like Facebook. Them no one you get to the White House. Every headline that's city right now. One load them. Every human have something that them destined. That is your destiny. Be what you ought to be. Even then no one you get nowhere. Reach nowhere. Everybody got to have a voice tonight. Reasoning deep till the morning light. Follow every trend. We have searched the truth again. real analytics, no pretend. Quality times to the standard again. Quality time every Monday night. I'll keep the people minds ignite. Live reactions, facts inside. Print, keep the conversation right. Quality time every Monday night. From the Caribbean to paradise. Come and show every song I write. On the street tonight. Am I wrong? I'll break it down so the truth
believe in myself.
Stock market rise and fall.
Nobody above myself. Energy, energy, build your energy. No charity. What a sight to see. What a sight to see. What a colossal. Working and working and working to prosper. What you gonna stop for? Keep on this right on the corner. Hey, we pray when I'm here there. Hey, tell the ears that them stay there. Hey, that is your destiny. So do what you ought to be. Even though you want you reach nowhere. So you have to find that way. Find that way. Then you want you reach nowhere. So you have to